Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my sketchbook. Well, it's been a few days since I've last drawn something. I had some guests on the weekend. Some of my favorite people on Earth dropped by for a visit, so I was glad to hang out with Bella and Lex. It was kind of a rare, awesome opportunity. So what we're going to do here is we're going to zoom in a little bit here to start. Let's see if we can sort of draw something reasonably quick. Hmm. I'm going to start with the eyes, I think. I was trying to think. Trying to think. When I was a kid, I didn't really look at Spider Man as being a human being, I guess you could say. When I would draw Spider Man, I treated Spider Man more like an alien. And I know that's a strange thing, but the truth is, I kind of pictured the way that he'd contort his body as not really being typically a human thing to do. Now, of course, he was bitten by a radioactive spider that gave him uh, special abilities. Well, some of those special abilities, of course, in my mind, was that he didn't move like a regular person anymore. He very much would move instinctually, and sometimes that allowed his body to kind of take control and do things for him. At least that's the way I kind of looked at Spider-Man. Now, very much a human, but a mutated sort, I guess you could say. I'm going to try to do a pose, if I can, that you just wouldn't see Spider-Man do. I'm trying to come up with a way to do that. Let's put a knee here. And let's extend some part of his foot. This is going to mean some part of this leg is going to have to go. A little strange. And don't really have room for the collarbone to do what I want the collarbone to do. Shoulder. Let's go with the shoulder kind of out this way too. An idea in my head. Because I'm not pre-penciling this, I'm going to have to be reasonably surprised with the outcome of whatever's going on here, which I'm okay with. Let's see. I talked about this a little bit in the last video. Peter Parker doesn't use his powers specifically for personal gain as much as you think he should. So he would get fantastic shots being a photographer for J. Jonah Jameson. He would deliver pizzas. He would also, I guess, starting out, would have involved himself in uh, some version of cage fighting, I guess, which you get to see in the Tobey Maguire version of Spider-Man. But when you have that kind of like power, you'd think in some ways you'd become a bounty hunter. Now it's good that he doesn't, I guess, because would he become more like the Punisher after a while? Like he really does keep the city safe, and he does so in mostly a thankless way. Like the city doesn't necessarily. And here's another thing: Spider-Man is very much a protector of the specific part of New York. So he's kind of like the hero of Queens, New York. He does make his way up through Manhattan and other boroughs, and yes, he can run into like um, what are some other heroes? Well, I mean Daredevil. Yeah, so yeah, he can go to places, other places, but he doesn't really make sense outside of the city, if that makes sense. At least in my mind, he doesn't make sense outside of New York. So, I mean, you get to see him in space, which is weird. You get to see him around water, which again, I think is kind of weird. Uh, I also think he's a bit of a contortionist, which is where I'm trying to go with this uh, drawing of sorts. Now, where would I put another foot? So if I put another foot here, let's say, and of course, I want to keep some of the proportions kind of okay. I don't know if I've seen Spider-Man in this kind of a pose before. We're not going to see much of that other leg. It's going to be kind of hidden behind the body here, which is convenient for me, I guess. Some part of the outfit back here. I mainly look at Spider-Man as being kind of like a university student, more so than a high school student, but like kind of always in student mode. Like Bart Simpson really never really got a chance to, you know, stop being the age that he is for a cartoon that's been around for as long as it has been around. He's kind of always been that age. Once in a while, they look into the future, of course, but for fun, let's add a little bit of color from the bunny pen. Okay, I'm just going to sort of sweep this in. Now, when Bella and Lex were in town, we visited Yo-Yo So, which I am not sponsored by, but I do buy stuff there because it is fun. And these multi-pen things are amongst my favorite things because if you're traveling around doodling pictures, you only have to pick up one pen to get multiple colors. And I find that to be fun to travel with. Okay. I'll add a bit more detail after the fact. I admit with Spider-Man and drawing doodles, sometimes you can get away with just stick figures first. And I think that's fun because he bends in ways that just doesn't make sense for human beings to bend. And then you can kind of like baloney him out afterwards. Hey, uh, for those of you that are doodling along or doodling whatever you feel like doodling, do you ever try to put some of your favorite characters in situations that are just kind of like regular, um, ridiculous situations? Like, for example, could you picture uh, Spider Man waiting in a lineup at a food cart to get a hot dog? And just waiting his turn patiently and not butting a line and insisting that he would pay for his hot dog, even though, let's say, at some point the vendor might have been rescued by him because of some sort of ridiculous thing that criminals were doing at the time. So, but he'd be like, "Oh no, no, I'll pay, I'll pay." Um, it's an interesting sort of idea of sorts, maybe. Often we get to see our favorite heroes of sorts in a battle, and there's buildings being wrecked, there's damage everywhere, there's cars being thrown around, and battle damage is the funnest stuff, I think. I mean, it's not good in real life, but seeing some version of like real world consequences for doing battles, it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to lightly just add some color with the bunny pen here. That would be a horrible thing for poor Spider Man because, well, he's not a wealthy uh, character, that he always has to try to maintain his costume. So it makes me wonder, does he buy certain fabrics in bulk? Does he have to buy certain things to maybe distract from, him buying blue and red all the time? I've seen in the comics where, he can't afford to always have a new uniform or outfit. So he does repairs, and sometimes they're not great, but he needs to get out on the street, so he'll put on like a hoodie just to hide some version of his secret identity. So that can't be easy. Uh, does he have a big pile of blue stretchy material? I mean, as tough as Spider-Man is, the material of his costume can't be that tough. I mean, he just doesn't have the budget to do those things. Let's try to add a little bit of detail into this and then not go too much further than that for today's doodle. I'm going to do a little bit of outlining, and then I'll try to work in some of the webbing on his costume. So yeah, you can let me know in the comments about some of the ridiculous poses that you expect out of your favorites, and which ones yourself, when you're doodling around, do you think are kind of the fun ones? Do you I don't know. Do you ever picture Iron Man eating shawarma, which we got to see with the other Avengers? I do believe in that scene, perhaps the actor that plays Captain America, I think he's like hiding a beard or something, maybe because of that end sequence or whatever. He's not actually eating shawarma with the rest of them. He has stuff in front of him, but he's not eating. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to look that up. Um, yeah, some of those end scene things are not filmed at the same time as the rest of the movies. So that was a funny scene. I believe it was just after falling from the sky that Tony basically says, hey, we should all get together and eat shawarma or something like that, which seems kind of funny. Okay. Now I left a little gap here in this eye because I wasn't sure if I was going to have like a winking kind of thing go on. Spider-Man can be kind of cheeky, not like Deadpool kind of cheeky, but you know the way he would wrap up a group of criminals who were not superpowered. He did it with enough care that I don't think he was really trying to hurt anybody, but then he would leave a note to the police to say, hey, it's your friendly neighborhood, Spider-Man caught these guys doing whatever. And I think he would once in a while uh, check in on some of those criminals too. Like, he'd get a look at their wallets and be like, oh, so you live like in whatever part of Queens or you live wherever, and this is your last known address. I'm going to come check in on you every so often, make sure you're doing the right thing. And then he, would fight incredible uh, criminals like the Kingpin. There's not really a lot of threats that you can throw at the Kingpin. He didn't always win his battles with Kingpin either. So Peter Parker's a very intelligent person, but not a criminal mastermind because he's not a criminal. I don't know what I think of these. This heart that I drew up here. It seems kind of funny. And again, I don't think this is a pose I've seen Spider-Man do. Did I say Spider-Man? Yeah, that sounds funny. The what was that show? The Goldbergs. I believe Adam's grandfather wouldn't really say like Batman or Spider-Man. He would say Spider-Man or something like that. I don't know why that popped into my head that way. I have a weird memory for things. Oh. Just adding little bits and pieces of detail. I'm trying to get this to kind of finish up. Okay. I'm going to dip the pen here. 20 minutes now. And I'm going to add a little bit of detail in the webbing and then figure out how I want this whole thing to end. Now when it comes to webbing, I know different artists have treated Spider-Man rather loosely. Like Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. I don't think he always did like a consistent sort of mapping of the face, for example. Sometimes he would get some of those other details kind of inconsistent, but he was always good for making sure that he told the story. I really liked his version of Spider-Man. It's more to do with well, I think he carried a lot of detail and damage in a way that you just didn't really get to see with Spider-Man too often. Now, trying to figure out a couple of things here, and then we'll let this come to an end. I have to imagine that with a lot of comic book art, you want to keep things simple enough so that you could repeat it often. But it would have been difficult because you wanted certain things to be consistent. So like the Punisher, which is an easy enough thing to identify, you can just put someone in a black suit and put a skull on their chest. That's reasonable to repeat that often. When it comes to Galactus, which I've talked about a little bit in the past, if you were to draw Galactus over and over and over again, well, he's got lots of little complicated things going on with his outfit that would make it difficult to just draw him over and over and over again. So, and he's such a big character that you can get away with, not having to do high detail stuff constantly. So that's nice. You just have to put his head in once in a while, and that wasn't really the most complicated thing about his outfit. So you wanted simple, you wanted things to be able to, that you could repeat them. They had to be iconic in a way that you would recognize them. This is an unusual thing that I've done here. Let's see, because I'm not always looking at the time. Final thing that I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm going to get my good buddy, the bunny pen, here once again, and use this to create some of the shadow works a little bit. So I'm going to go darker here. not super dark. It's unnecessary. A little bit of the ankle, a little bit of that Achilles tendon, a little bit in the bottom part of the heel here. Just for fun. Same with over here. I'll put on a little bit of that heel. Calf. Underneath the leg here. Underneath the chin. The head. Bottom part of the neck. Bottom part of the chest. We can add in kind of a version of the cheek there. Sneak in a little smile if we can. Squish nose, a little bit underneath there. A little bit under the chin. Bottom of the hand, bottom of that thumb. Bottom part of that thumb, just a little bit. Here, as if the top part of the hand is creating a bit of shadow on that part of the thumb. Okay, let's get this blue, and we'll work a little bit of this here. We don't have to go into great detail. A semi-shiny suit. A knee that would extend back here behind the head. Bottom part of this arm. Out here to the elbow. I think that might be the run of it. Going back to the red here for a moment just to drift in some in the hands here. Underneath there. All right. I think that's going to be kind of the run of it. I don't think we need to go really any further for a picture of Spidey. All right, folks. Well, thanks for hanging out. I hope you have a great day. And yeah, let me know in the comments what sort of Spidey you draw. All right. Ciao for now.